SpaceX warning. Faulty Starlink satellites pose huge threat to the future of space travel. This is by Claire Anderson on Express UK. We know that a couple of days ago, about a week ago actually, Elon Musk, with his rockets, positioned the first 60 satellites from Starlink. There's another 12,000 that he plans to put up in order to have internet worldwide offered. There's also Amazon and another 2 or 3 private companies that wish to do the same thing. In total, there will be 20,000 low Earth orbit satellites above our heads. Many a time they will be shining, so we'll be able to see them shining much brighter than the brightest star in the sky. Elon Musk's SpaceX runs the risk of creating space junk, though, which could not only spark a chain reaction of exploding satellites, but also halt future launches. Can you imagine that? I don't understand why they didn't think of this beforehand. SpaceX successfully launched 60 satellites into orbit last week, part of their Starlink project focusing on bringing high-speed internet to anyone around the world. The company hopes that the so-called mega constellation of their satellites will grow to include thousands of satellites in the coming years. But Elon Musk's plans could be thwarted if a single satellite loses power and crashes into another. 2 satellites colliding would send pieces of junk flying through space. The debris could then smash into another satellite, setting off a chain reaction where satellites are obliterated. Now, we do have, quite often, car accidents on our streets, and it's not far from fantasy to have that many satellites up in the air in lower Earth orbit, 20,000. It could be a possibility that they would collide with each other. 2 satellites colliding would send pieces of junk flying, the debris smashing into other satellites, setting off chain reactions where the satellites are, of course, obliterated. Senior researcher T.S. Kelso said, "This issue must be dealt with immediately." Dr. Kelso said, "We've got to figure out how to get a handle on this. The community needs to understand that it's not about probability, it's risk, it's the consequences." The junk could impact Starlink, the International Space Station, spy satellites, and Earth imaging technology. GPS services would be knocked out, as well as weather tracking technology, and even flights could be grounded. Luckily, the scenario is incredibly unlikely. Jonathan McDowell, astronomer at the Hartford Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, says if you put up 10 times the current total number of satellites, the risk is not just 10 times as big, it's 100 times bigger. Elon Musk said SpaceX takes the problem very seriously and said Starlink satellites can automatically dodge traceable pieces of debris. In other words, they can maneuver themselves around the debris. He told reporters, "We're taking great pains to make sure there's not an orbital debris issue." But McDonald added, "If there's some subtle failure that only kicks in 2 years after launch, you could end up with 1,000 dead satellites in the operational orbit." If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.